If there were monsters to defeat in real life, what weapon would you want? Fair enough. A big-ass weapon for a big-ass monster. Wait, what? Oh, this? You mean a huge version of a sword? Get out, you failed the monster killer exam. Well, let's see, how did humans manage to kill huge animals in the past? In the Stone Age, for example, when they hunted mammoths, they would have several options. For one, they could dig a large pit and cover it in branches and whatnot and lure the mammoth into that. It would fall into the pit, and then they could either wait until it starves to death or otherwise dies from the injuries it might have gotten, or they could have thrown spears at it at leisure and kill it that way. Alternatively, they might chase it to make it expend energy, surround it, throw spears at it, shoot arrows at it until it's weak enough that they can close in and skewer it until it's dead. Picking up a giant serrated unwieldy paddle and rushing the monster head on, screaming, trying to chop it to pieces without any semblance of tactics, on the other hand, just doesn't strike me as a very smart idea. You can say, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter, they have superpower strength in the games and whatever, because they can wield these humongous things that would weigh probably a literal ton, just swing them around as if they weigh nothing. So, okay, they have to be superpowered, obviously. They also have to have super toughness, obviously, because if they didn't, then the act of swinging those massive things around, which would generate a lot of force, would just tear their ligaments off and rip their muscles and break their bones and all that, especially when they try to stop them from a full swing. So yeah, they have to be superheroes all around. At that point, they might just as well walk up to the monster, rip its leg off, and beat it to death with it. I mean, come on. Alright, so for the sake of the rule of cool, let's assume for a moment that these monster killers do indeed have the strength and toughness required to wield supersized weapons. Why would they pick a sword? Why would they, really? I mean, think about it. What is a sword? It's a weapon specifically designed for fighting other humans with swords. And the design is optimized for that. It's got most of the weight in the hilt, which means that the blade is quite agile. It doesn't hit as hard as, for example, an axe, because it just doesn't have as much mass here. But it's easier to actually fence with against another weapon. Because monsters generally don't use swords, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If, however, you flip the balance upside down, it hits a lot harder. Something like an axe requires more strength to use and more endurance as well, but we've already established that's not a problem with fantasy monster killers. So why would they not want to maximize the amount of damage they can use? If you have that much strength, then put it all into accelerating this much mass all the way at the end where the leverage is greatest and where you can strike the hardest. Because it's not like you have to worry about fancy maneuvers on behalf of the monster. You don't have to quickly parry or whatever. If you even block or parry at all, which doesn't seem to be a good idea against a huge monster, then you don't have to do it in a fancy duelist's fashion. So something like this would serve a lot better. Also worth considering, what do you think concentrates more energy? This or this? The axe may look smaller overall, but if you think about striking a large monster with a long blade like this, a lot of the blade will be in contact with the monster's skin at any given time, which means that all of this force that you're putting into it is getting dissipated along most of the blade. On the other hand, if you were to strike with an axe like this, all the force is concentrated on just this short edge here, or even more so on the spike. So that will penetrate a lot further and do more damage. Of course, that also applies to a warhammer like this. I mean, these were designed to defeat armor. So if you're going up against a monster with thick dermal plating or something like that, then you can either use the hammer end to try to dent it or crack the plates, or you can use the spike to try to penetrate through, and there's even a spike on the top if you need to thrust like into an eye or something like that. So you would have plenty of options if you were to make this a lot larger to suit the strength of that superpowered hero, essentially, then yeah, you've got something to work with. Now, one thing to keep in mind is it shouldn't be all too humongously oversized and heavy, because if you have an extremely heavy object that you accelerate to a speed high enough to be effective in combat, be it against humans or monsters, you have a lot of force tugging on whoever is swinging that object, so they need to be very heavy, in fact. So they would have to be super powered, have super toughness, and have super weight as well. So if you were a superhero and insisted on using a weapon of heroic proportions, even though you would probably be powerful enough to just fist bump the monster to death, but you have to look cool at the same time, right? Then choosing a pole arm would make a whole lot more sense. But of course, this entire thing throws the in real life part out of the window entirely. So if you were just a regular person, well, maybe not regular, but within human limits in real life, what would you pick? Well, certainly not a melee weapon. I mean, if a lazy little tail swipe of the monster will break all your bones, then it is absolutely insane to go into melee distance. You really have no reason to. I mean, there were ways of dealing with giant things that are hard to destroy in the past. It's called siege engines. They were there for a reason. A ballista in particular is essentially nothing but a giant crossbow. And in some games you have to do just that. You have to fight your way to the nearest ballista or catapult or what have you, and unleash some punishment on the dragon or whatever it is. Depending on the size of that damn dragon, this might be a toothpick for it. So if you make this thing 10 times larger and shoot it from a ballista, yeah, this is going to be way more effective than anything you could ever hope to accomplish in person. No, I mean, we as humans are ingenious at finding ways of compensating for our innate weaknesses. We don't have teeth and claws, we are not particularly strong compared to many other animals, and we have all these limitations, and we overcome them with technology. So why would that be any different if suddenly Godzilla appeared? If you have gunpowder, obviously bring out the cannon or the artillery or the nuke. Whatever you have that has the most firepower is what's needed. And if it has to be portable, or as portable as possible for some reason, then at least use the strongest possible crossbow that you can build. Make it as large and powerful as you possibly can while still being somewhat portable. Maybe 2 people can carry it, something like that. If you then have an entire army of super heavy crossbowmen that all unleash into the belly of the beast, then yeah, even the quote-unquote toothpicks will probably do something. And you should keep in mind that velocity is key. The faster you can make that projectile travel, the more effective it's going to be. If you think about a little .22 caliber bullet, for example, or a .22 Magnum even, they're really tiny, but they travel at really fast velocities, and it is enough to rip through a body. So if you are able to accelerate, say, a spear to 1,500 FPS or something, yeah, that would most likely do the job, because at that point it has a ton of kinetic energy. So yeah, swords are cool and all, but against giant monsters, not the best choice in my opinion. In fact, you could even argue that if you were superpowered, you would be better off with a spike. You could just climb on top of the damn thing and find the weak spot, the softest part, and just jam that thing in there, and maybe even bring a hammer with you and stake it, essentially. So swords are just better against people, not against monsters. Although some people are monsters. But let's leave it at that. Thanks for watching.